Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I was very thrilled to hear this class sold out. Oh, it's very exciting. Thank you to Lauren for the intro and to Plaza Art for hosting and to Speedball for all the amazing supplies that I love and have used for a decade. I'm just going to go over the supplies briefly and then go over the project and then we will get started because there's no time to waste. We got some carving and printing to do. So this is my favorite rubber, the 4x6 Speedy Carve. I like this for paper printing. I like it for fabric printing. I have fabric ink here. If you ever want to try this on fabric, it's fantastic. This is also by Speedball. It's very flexible, easy to carve, and I just love it. It's great. We have the roller. This one is, I've used it a little bit, sorry. It was brand new at one point, but I've been using it. This is the 2-inch one, as Lauren mentioned. We have our inks, black and red. You can also buy a full kit of inks so that you can do a lot of different mixing and new colors, and that's fantastic. We have a soft lead pencil, which I know this brand is a little different than the one you have, but 6B, very soft lead, which is fantastic for what we're doing. We're going to be drawing an image on paper and then transferring it to the rubber, so we want a really soft lead that will smear well. And then you might also want an eraser. Very useful since these don't have erasers on them. I have 4x6 just printer paper cut down. It's the same size as our block, so we know exactly how much space we have to draw. And a pair of scissors might be handy. There also is a cutting tool in the back of this if we need it, like a little X-Acto, but scissors are nice too. And then I know you guys have the 5x7 really nice paper pads. I just have some like really simple like folded cards. So this is also 5x7, but I'll just be printing on these today. So very similar to what you have. And yeah, I'm just gonna go over the project. So let me get you water. Hold on. Nice to talk to you so much. I'm just used to working by myself in here. So the example that I made for this class is a little joy card with houses, which is very cute. You could definitely like copy this design or make something very similar. I'm gonna do something similar with my project today, like my own project, but it's gonna be like houses and trees so that you can kind of make repeating patterns on your paper, which I find to be a little bit more flexible than carving one image to print. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to guide you through what I'm doing. And then if you're like, no, I want to do my own thing, that's totally great. If you do want to do your own thing, you could do an abstract shape like one of these. You could do text. So text kind of sounds a little intimidating. It can be, but we are going to be, like I said, drawing on here. And then when we transfer, it'll reverse the image or the text. And then when we print, it'll reverse again. So if you want to do text, you won't have to write backwards, which is great. So there's some little examples of text. I made a little please do not bend for packages, which, you know, works half the time. You could do a little face. These are little portraits that I've done in the past. This one you can see is I'm using like the full size of the block and then kind of carving out versus these ones I'm carving away so that the border is, you know, non-rectangle, non-square. You could do a simple shape like this, a vegetable, a fruit, a book. If you're feeling like you don't know how to draw, that's fine. I kind of feel like I don't know how to draw either. I feel like block printing, you can create something that the drawing might be simple, but the print looks better than the drawing. You know what I mean? Like it has a little charm to it. So don't worry about that if you're feeling like you don't know how to draw. I just also want to show you this example of the tiniest little cat face that I thought could be super cute for a holiday card. Like imagine printing it and then having like a little speech bubble and having it be like happy holidays or whatever. So my point is that you can either follow my project directly or you can kind of do your own thing. Also thinking about using, this is another example of a previous sort of holiday card. Thinking about, do you want to use your whole block for one image? Do you want to use your block for tons of little stamps? You can clearly get like a lot out of this block. I know it seems small, but you can do a lot with it. So start thinking about that. You might already have an idea, and if you don't, you can just follow what I'm doing. What am I forgetting here? Also thinking about positive space versus negative space. So these are two great examples to explain that. You can see one of them, I'm using the whole block and I'm kind of carving away. And this one I'm leaving the image and carving out. So whatever you carve away will not be there. Whatever you leave raised up will be inked and will be there. So think about that. Also think about like, you can't really put anything back that you carve away. So it's like cutting your hair, cutting your own hair, which I've done before. Like you can't tape it back on. So just be aware of your cuts and know that each cut will show up in the image, if that makes sense. So with that, I think I'm ready to switch over and spotlight my hands over here. So we're going to just get right to work. Thank you for the spotlight. So here's my 4x6 paper that I was talking about earlier. Just printer paper, very simple. If you don't have printer paper, like any paper you have on hand will work. Thin is nice. It transfers nicely to the rubber block. Okay, so I have my pencil here, my eraser, because that's very useful. The first class I ever taught, I brought everybody, this was in-person class, I brought everyone one sheet of this and one eraser. And I was like, or actually, sorry, no, I didn't bring an eraser. One sheet of this and one pencil. And I was like, all right, good luck. And everyone was like, what if I mess up? So I've learned from that. Okay, so I want to think about my space here. So I have 4x6 paper, and I can either do, like I said, fill the whole image, like use the whole block, like this one, or do lots of little ones. And I think in this case, I want to do a couple little ones. So my thought was doing a couple little trees and then a couple houses. So when I instruct people to start sketching, I usually have them sketch lightly at first with the soft lead pencil, and then once you're satisfied with the drawing, go over the drawing really dark with this, because the darker your image is, the easier it will transfer to the rubber. So I'm going to start really faintly here. You might not be able to see it super clearly just because of that, but I'm just going to do a really simple little tree shape. And if you're feeling like a little intimidated by this, by carving, you can stick to a simple shape. You don't have to worry, maybe skip the text for this one and just kind of do something simple. I really like doing little stamps like this, little cat face, just because it can be used in different ways and like repeated, and just, I don't know, I feel like they're a little bit more flexible in terms of usage. So I'm going to do, let's see. You know what? I'm going to flip this over. So you notice that I started drawing my tree kind of like not in the corner. I'm gonna fix that and use my space wisely, right? So do the same design right here. I'll do a slightly smaller tree. So I'm gonna leave a little space between my images, because when I transfer and then start carving, I want there to be, for example, in this one, you see how I left like a little bit of a border here for me to grab onto, so that when I'm printing, my fingers don't get really inky, if that makes sense. So I like to leave, with this one, there's obviously no place to grab on, so this one's a little messier, but this big one, you can see I'm inking it up, flipping it over, and like there's no issue with my hands touching the ink. So just think about that, having a little gap between everything. I'm going to do a little house. Very simple shapes here. You could also go more detailed if you've done this before and you're really into it, because I know some people have done this like in high school or college. And I remember we carved like the foam that comes with raw meat for some reason when I was in elementary school. Like, is this sanitary? I don't know. Hygienic, whatever the word is. So you can see I'm going really lightly with this pencil here. Forgot to mention at the beginning that I have an art business called Rare Press. that I've been doing for running for about 10 years. And these are all the supplies that I started out with, and I still love them and use them, these Speedball supplies. So yeah, tried and true. Love them very much. Let's do a chimney here. So I'm feeling like these drawings are simple and they're ready to go. They're ready to be darkened. So I'm gonna go in with my pencil and like really make them extra dark. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as well. And I might go back once I start carving, I might go back and like add some texture. Um, there are times when, I design the piece and then I start carving and then I'm like, well, I want to add, I want to like do a little more than what I had originally planned. So that might happen today. We'll see. Okay, two little trees. Make the house is nice and dark. And I think these specific designs are great just because like imagine your holiday card here and you could do like a bunch of little houses, like a little village, and then trees in the background. I might actually also add like a moon, just a very simple circle. I have a trick for carving circles, which I will show you once we get to that point. Okay, just darkening the windows and the door. So yeah, I'm running my business for over 10 years now. And I started with printmaking, but I've kind of expanded out and done a bunch of other things, painting and some ceramic stuff. And I just can't stick to one thing. But I feel like printing is like my favorite that I always go back to. So I'm really glad to be teaching classes. Okay, I'm happy with that. I might add in just, well, should I? Yeah, I will. I might add in some little bricks, like a little, not bricks, sorry, shingles, that's the word. This will, of course, complicate the carving a bit. It'll make it a little more detailed, but I think I can handle it. So I have 5 little pieces here ready to transfer, and I've darkened them. And I like to just look at the rubber block. There are times when there might be like a little imperfection in the rubber, and I like to just make sure I'm transferring on the more perfect side. So this one looks good, very smooth. And here's my favorite trick about using this particular rubber is all you have to do is flip over your paper. And what you do is you grab the handle end of your tool, so this end. You can hear the other gouges in there, which I'll show you a little bit later, but just make sure that your paper is touching the rubber, it's not moving at all. So I usually hold it with my non-dominant hand and then go like this with my dominant hand on with the tool. And as long as the paper is not moving, you should get a really nice transfer. So I like to make sure it looks good. The other great thing about this rubber is that you can draw on it directly. So if you are feeling brave and you don't want to even sketch anything, you can definitely draw right on it. Keeping in mind that your image will be transferred once you print. So like I said, because we're drawing this first, we get a transfer and then another transfer. So it comes out looking the way we drew it. But if you're feeling kind of wild, you can go for it. And for example, like a tree, would come out looking fairly similar because it's, got the same shape on both sides, symmetrical, as you say. But if it's something like text, for example, you definitely want to sketch first. So you can see it's working. Patricia asks, is it okay to use a template? Yeah, you can use, if you mean like a pre-drawn thing, or like something you trace, that's totally fine. Absolutely. A stencil. Yeah, you could definitely use a stencil. That's a great idea. Okay, so you can see that worked great. I am going to fill in any spots that are kind of bare. Just make sure that like, at this point, it's really important to make sure that you're drawing, like what you see on the rubber is very clear because that's what's going to guide your carving, right? So if your drawing is fuzzy or confusing or you're like, wait, what did I do there? It's going to be a lot trickier to carve.
Hi, Lizzie. It's Jessica from Plaza. We're just quick question.
Yeah.
Right now, you are doing these as individuals. Are
Yes.
these going to be cut out individually and
Yes,
then use as
exactly.
stamps? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes. So I'm going to be cutting these out, similar to this little cat. So I'll have five separate stamps that I'll use to kind of create little vignettes on the paper. Yeah. Good question. And like I mentioned earlier, there is a little X-Acto tool in here, which is really handy. I feel like I just recently started like taking advantage of that tool and being like, oh yeah, this is really useful. So I'll be showing you that as well. So as you're drawing and transferring your image, there will be changes, you know. I think it's with this method, you're gonna expect a little bit of difference between your original drawing and the final piece. And I kind of like that just because it lets me like not be in control so much and just like be okay with it being a little different. There are, of course, other ways to transfer images to rubber, but this is my favorite, especially for workshops, because it's so quick and easy and effective, and the rubber just takes so well to the soft lead. So yeah, this is my favorite way, I would say. So as I said, like I might, as I'm carving, I might like add a little texture to the moon, but I'll just say that in the moment just because we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we're at the point where we can start slicing these apart. So I have my five images and I have a lot of rubber left. So I'm gonna save that in case I have time at the end to make another stamp. That would be really great. So I'm gonna show you quickly how to switch out the gouge. So right now I have the number one in here, which is the smallest that comes in this set. And you just have to loosen this little metal part here. Um, this should slide right out. You never have to take this whole thing off. You just have to loosen it. There's like, it's a little hard to show on camera, but there's a little slot where it should slide right in. So that can be tightened. And then here are all of the gouges in the back, which I love. During workshops, everyone's like, oh, wow, so cool. So here's the one I was mentioning. I believe it's the number 6, and it's like a little X-Acto knife. Very handy. I'm going to leave all these out because we'll be using them. And then, like I said, find that little slot. It should just go right in there. You can tighten this. So you shouldn't have anything moving around at this point. This should be really snug in there. These are also sharp, so please be aware of that. Once we start carving, I'll show you more, but you're just going to want to make sure your fingers are out of the way. Okay, so like I said, I'm leaving a little gap around everything, but at this point, I have paper down here, so I'm gonna pretend like this is a cutting mat. I'm living life on the edge here. So I'm just gonna slice through, and that cuts pretty cleanly. You can also use scissors if you like. Totally fine to use scissors. Okay, so we're gonna slice through here. So this is basically the same exact process you would use for the original example that I made, this one here, except that you're not cutting anything apart, right? So you're using your same paper, and in this example, I just drew 4 houses and wrote the word joy, right? And it's the same exact process. You're just not cutting pieces separately. It's all one block that stays together.
So, Lizzie, when you're cutting, do you use a cutting mat underneath to
I
protect?
typically would, yes, and I have a bunch of layers of paper on my desk, so I'm
Okay.
not using one today, but I normally would, yes.
Okay.
And that's if you don't have a cutting mat or you don't want to use this one, scissors work great too, and then you don't need to worry about a mat at all. I just like this rubber because it's so flexible and like show you with the scissors. It's very easy to cut just like that too, and it's very clean as well. So no need for a mat if you don't have one handy, just like that. Okay, so now I have my 5 separate blocks here. And I'm gonna leave, even though this one has like a little extra space on that side, I'm gonna leave it and then worry about that at the end, and I can cut that off later. So, or use it for a little tiny, teeny tiny block. So I'm going to start with one of the trees, and I'll show you how to switch back. So you just loosen this part. It should slide right out. So I usually start with the number 1 gouge, which is the smallest one. They have numbers, they're kind of hard to see right in this part here. So there's a little number 1 right there. And I'm just going to slide it in like that. Tighten it up. That. And again, it should be really tight in there. You should not have a loose gouge. Make sure it's snug and not wiggling around. So my technique that I've been practicing for a while, like 10 years, is to carve away from yourself. And for example, for this tree, I would start at the top, and I'm kind of doing the outline first with my number 1, which with my skinny gouge. So my outline, I'm going right up against the line of the drawing. You can see that line is very straight, and it's kind of tricky to figure out how deep to go. I know people often ask, like, how deep should I be carving? It's tricky because it'll depend a lot on how much ink you use and how much pressure you use when you're printing, but I tend to go about that deep. Can't measure that, but you're wanting to kind of skate along the surface, so you don't want to be like gouging into the rubber because your tool will get stuck and it'll be a big mess. So I'm kind of like not quite parallel, but almost skating along the surface. And you see how I'm kind of starting at those little corners and going outward, so that if my tool slips, I'm not going to cut into my design, right? Holding it with my non-dominant hand and just gently pushing the tool. And then to end the cut, I like to kind of scoop up a little bit so that the tool doesn't get stuck. So I'm starting right at this little corner here, going outward. And you can see how those lines are nice and straight because I'm doing each one individually. Same here, straight down, scoop up, going across, scoop up. So we're just doing the outline. I like to do the outline first because it gives me a visual on where I need to carve next and where not to carve next. So it's just a really good starting place. And this number 1 is a great tool for that because it's nice and thin and sharp and yeah, ready to go. Same thing here, scooping. So I'll show you an example, like if I were to get stuck in there, this is what it would look like. And then you're kind of left with like just a messy spot. It's really not a big deal. You can just slide it out. But if you can try to skate along the surface, I like to use my pointer finger to push the tool. And I'm not using a lot of pressure either. Like, you know how you have a little extra space here or here? If you have extra space or, an extra piece of rubber, you can just do some test lines. And that really helps figure out like, okay, how hard do I need to push? How deep do I need to go, etc. Okay, so I'm going to finish the outline of this tree. You'll probably find these scraps in your house for the next like 5 years, so just be warned. Okay, so here's my last cut of the outline. Okay, so this one is completely outlined. At this point, I can either go back with the same tool and kind of like continue the cuts around it. Like I said before, I want to leave a little space to hold on to so that when I'm printing, it's a little bit less messy. But I'm going to go in with a bigger gouge. So I'm going to loosen this, slide it out, and then I like to use the number 5, which is the biggest one. So here's the box, and you can see it has 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, 6 being the little cutter tool. So we were using number 1. I'm switching to number 5, which is the biggest. Those are the 2 that I use the most though, because they're just the most useful in my opinion. So you're putting in the non-sharp end into the handle there. This is the sharp end sticking out. You want to twist it tight. And then I have a lot of space here to carve away, right? So I'm going to figure out, okay, what I typically do is like I will carve these big swaths away and then go back with the number one or a smaller one and like kind of finish it off. So I'm going to go here, same exact technique. You're kind of skating along the surface, scooping up at the end. You might have a piece stuck, which is totally normal. But you can see that carves away a lot more at a time. So I like this for bigger areas like that. And you might not be able to get, like, depending on the size of your image, I'm able to fit my tool just barely into that corner. So I'm going to start it, like kind of tuck it in there and then slide it out. But you can always go back with a different tool and like clean it up. So don't worry if you don't get all the pieces cut away. So like I said, anything that's raised up obviously will be getting inked, right? So anything you're carving away will not be in the image. So you can see how kind of messy that looks. Not to worry because that will not be in the final print, right? It'll be too low to get ink. Okay, so I'm just basically doing a fatter outline than I did before, going all the way around. Starting to look like a tree, I think. Joyce says this is very interesting. Q. Any questions, please let me know. I'm sure that I've missed things along the way. So please don't hesitate. Hold on, sorry. Sorry, I got stuck in the chat there for a minute. I didn't quite get that question. I will come back to it in one sec here. Oh yeah, show us how to change the blades again. Yes, 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 yes. I will show you that right now because this happens a lot in workshops. So don't worry. It sounds like someone's tool came apart, which happens a lot. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when it comes apart. So this will often happen where it's like, oh no, oh my gosh, these pieces. So not to worry. So this is the little, I need to learn the names of these. I always just like make up names for them. Anyway, we're going to put it all together. So these two pieces kind of sandwich together and um, you can kind of see where they meet up. So, geez, let me just throw on this board first. You can see where they go together. And so they kind of slide together like that. So you want to turn your, someone said ferrule, I don't, a word that I don't know. And you want to drop it upside down. And then you're holding it upside down. Oh, a chuck. Okay, interesting. I'm learning things today. Thank you. So you can see it just twists right back on, and you can kind of hear it in there too. I'll show you one more time. Okay, pieces come apart. Oh no, no, no. These have been like lost in workshops before, like they fall into the carpet and like never to be found again. Um, so you just put these little two silver pieces together, and you want the rounded part to drop in from upside down, and you're kind of holding it upside down so it doesn't fall out again. Twist it back on. You want to leave it a little bit loose, right, so that you can slide your tool back in. Come on, do it, do it. There we go. Okay. It just takes a little practice. I know it's those parts can be a little intimidating, but it's all good. Okay, there we go. So we're back to our tree and
Lizzie,
yeah.
it looks like your camera flipped vertical. Would
Oh
you be able
no.
to adjust it?
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry about that.
There we go.
I don't know
No
why I did
worries.
that.
Thank you.
Rude. Okay. All right, so I'm basically to the point where I'm ready to start kind of getting rid of all this excess. So I might grab, you can either grab scissors. I'll show you with scissors, like just like this. And again, I'm leaving some of that stuff there, right, as our little border. Scissors work great. If you want to do the X-Acto tool, that works great as well. Just going to switch that out. Come on, you can get in there. There we go. Okay, so I'm just kind of like getting rid of this excess. You can carve it away too. Um, I just find that sometimes cutting it is a little bit quicker, but totally up to you. So I'm just like kind of slicing that off. It's basically, you're just basically creating like a rubber stamp, right? That's kind of the idea. Of course, when you're doing something bigger, this doesn't really feel as much like a rubber stamp, but these little mini ones definitely just feel like, you know, your typical, like, I feel like when I was a kid in the 90s, I had a lot of rubber stamps. So it's kind of fun to be making my own now. I'm just kind of slicing in between the branches there. This little tool is so handy. I can't believe I went so many years without realizing that. Okay, so I can look at it now and I see that there are a few pieces that are kind of raised up, right? So I might go back in with maybe the number one, small one. And kind of like clean up any little pieces that I don't want there. And then pretty soon I can show you a test print. So the test print is great because um, it allows you to see if there's anything that you missed, right? So we'll do a little ink, do a little print, and then if there's anything you still want to carve away, you can do that. You'll just wash your block and then you can easily carve away a little bit more. So I'm going to print now to see if there's anything raised up. I just want to see with the ink because it makes it easier to see. So before we do that though, I'm going to do the little texture on the tree. So trying to keep my fingers out of the way. With something so small, it can be tricky. Um, just keeping them kind of out of the line, right? I have cut myself before. It's been a while though, so, but just be careful. We don't want any injuries. When I was a nanny, the kid that I nannied and his mom used to call finger injuries finjuries, which I always thought was so funny. So we don't want any finjuries today. Okay, so the texture is done. Now, I forgot to show you this earlier, but this is my surface for for rolling out ink. So you might have a piece of plastic, you might have a plate, you might have basically anything that won't absorb ink, right? You don't want like really, you could use cardboard, but you're going to have a lot of ink absorption, which is just kind of a waste of ink. But whatever you've got that can, you know, that's a surface that will be good for rolling out ink. So I'm just going to use a tiny bit to start. And this is a water-based ink, so it dries really fast. So that once we're done printing, your holiday cards will be kind of ready to go really quick, which is great. So I have my 2-inch brayer here, the roller, and I'm just gonna start gently rolling the ink out a bit. We kind of are looking for that Velcro-y sound that you can hear. And you want your roller to be covered. You can see I kind of missed a spot there, so I'll go back. Okay, that sounds really nice. Move this out of the way. I've got my tiny little tree here. So I like to do like several thin layers, right? If your ink is too wet and gloopy, it's gonna get in all the little crevices there and it's not gonna print very well. So we're just gonna do a nice thin layer here over the top, back and forth. And since this is just a test print, I'm gonna kind of keep it simple like that. You can see the shine on there. That's what we wanna see. I'm gonna actually just print right on my sketch paper as a test. So you can plop it down anywhere. you can, for a small print like this or a small block like this, you can just use your fingers. I do have a Baron over here, which is for like getting even pressure for, this is very dirty, very well loved. For a bigger print, like if you were using these, this would be really handy, but for a small print like this, hands are totally fine. We're gonna pull it up. Well, that's adorable. Okay, so you can see that there's a little bit of like the line right there isn't as crisp as it could be, which, you know, doesn't have to be perfect. But if I wanted to go back, for example, and tidy that up, I definitely could. But I kind of like it a little bit, you know, imperfect. So I think I'm gonna go with this one and leave it. I think I really like the texture too. It shows that it's like, it's alive, you know? Okay, that one's good. So we're gonna continue carving our other pieces. So now I've kind of shown you the full process from start to finish. And I know that people take different amounts of time to finish their projects. So I know that you also be able to go back and watch again if you would like, because I know we're going a little fast. So yeah. Joyce said, I love it. Imperfections and all. Oh, thanks. That's how I feel too. All right, let's move on to one of the little houses. I like this one a lot with the little chimney. So same exact process here, keeping your fingers out of the way, starting with the number 1 gouge. It sounds like, Donna, you're having issues getting the blade in. I'm so sorry. Let's see, you just want to make sure this is like as loose as possible without, you know, falling off. And you should, as you're doing this, you should see it sort of fall to the side, and there should be a little opening between the ball part and the curved part, and it should, in theory, slide right in there. I'm sorry if you're having trouble. I know sometimes these are a little bit sticky. And yeah, I hope you can have success there with that. All right, same exact process here. That line was not straight, but that's okay. So we're using the number 1 gouge. We're carving away from our fingers. These are all just really simple straight lines. Sometimes the scraps get stuck in the tool, so just clean it up every time if you'd like. Okay, you can see I'm just going there with the outline. This is a good example or place just to think about positive versus negative, right? So I am carving around the image and then like carving the windows and door out kind of thing, so that the house itself is going to be black or inked, and the windows and door will be not inked. Let's see. If I wanted to do a large tree on the pink rubber, would I leave most of the rubber there and cut out tiny ornaments, etc.? How could I make the interior of the tree decorative? Yes, that's a great idea. So I would do exactly what you said. I would have the tree just like this, but obviously a lot bigger. And then you could do little circular ornaments, just like the idea of a, you know, like a shape to imply an ornament. You don't have to go really crazy with it, but little circles. You could do little like twinkly stars, like just show you quick, like just even 3 lines like that to indicate like a little sparkle on the tree. You could even do like curved lines to indicate like garlands or something like that. I think that's a great idea, especially full size on the rubber. I think would look fantastic. Thank you, Joyce, for that question. Okay, so I'm going to go in and do the door and window details. Same process here. I'm just basically outlining things. Tiny doorknob. And then the window, just a square. with a plus sign. Very simple. Hopefully simple. I've always been a very like rushed carver. I tend to not take my time with it. So there have been times where I will challenge myself to make a really detailed carving and like spend a week on it, but it's hard. I want to get to the printing part, you know what I mean? So, okay, so there's everything carved out. We have our outline and now we're ready to carve away the bigger pieces. So I'm going to get my number 5 carving tool again, slide that out. That's the number 3. Oh, here it is. Yes, I think a tree for holiday cards is a fantastic idea. Do. Okay. So I'm going in with my number 5. Same process here, fingers out of the way. I love this rubber so much. I mentioned earlier that this works really great for fabric printing, and I think it does because it has so much give to it. Like when you're printing on fabric, you want the block to really press into the fabric, and in my experience, this rubber is so great for that. Like, for example, using linoleum doesn't work as well because it's such a hard surface. It doesn't really push in the right amount, you know. This is my preferred rubber for fabric. Ooh, we have a comment. I've learned acrylic collage with a local artist. She suggested making a signature stamp with this block carving technique. Love that idea. Love that. I think this could be really fun in general to add to an acrylic collage painting. Yes, 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 yes. Mixed media forever. Love that idea. I feel like once I taught myself to carve and print, my world exploded. I was like, oh, I can do so many different cool things with this process, you know? Um, some of you may have heard of a technique called reduction printing, where you are basically using the same block and you are carving layers away and printing different colors as you go. So you end up with a block that's like not really usable by the end, which I kind of love, honestly, because then I don't need to like store the block anywhere. It's just gone. But you can just get some really incredible like layers of color with that technique, and I just love it. I have a Patreon page and I put up tutorials there often, and I have a few tutorials about reduction printing if you're ever interested. It's the most fun. Something I want to do more of this year.
Lizzie, sorry if you answered this, but Carmen was asking if you were carving out the house and leaving the background, how would you do that so that you don't get cuts in the background?
Oh yes, so sorry I missed that. You can, so in that case, you would have the background would maybe be like the night sky, for example, like in this house or in this, sorry, in this block. So in this block, I have the house here and I just, same thing where I did the outline and then I like cut the windows out. But you can see the background is completely like uncut. It's just the block itself, if that makes sense. So that's a great example of like positive versus negative space and leaving the background either like having no background. For example, with this tree, there's no background. Yeah, you just have to be careful. Yeah, exactly. So you are being very planned with your cuts and just like taking it really slow. The other thing is if you did make a little dent somewhere, make a little mark, I try really hard to like incorporate that into the design, even though it's always disappointing when you kind of mess up your plan. But I would maybe like put a few little stars or something like that if I accidentally like, had a little cut. But yeah, I feel you. It can be frustrating when you're trying to be careful and you make a mistake. So yes, I will show you the circle carving trick. I'll do that right now. Thanks for reminding me so that if you have any curves, you can go right ahead and do those. I'm just going to show you with the big tool just because it's in there and it applies no matter what tool you have in there. So my trick for carving a circle, I'm carving around this circle this time. You can also obviously carve away a circle, but I'll show you both. So I'm holding with my non-dominant hand and I line up my tool around the edge, and my left hand is the one turning, right? And my right hand is literally just kind of pushing the tool very gently. So I'm not having to like curve my arm in a weird, uncomfortable position. Again, my fingers are generally out of the way. Keep them back here. But you can see that, of course, it's never going to be a perfect circle, and that's okay. But I'm not having to contort my body in any weird position. I have one question. Give me one sec here. Okay, you can see it's one single cut, and there's my circle, and then I can go from there. If that makes sense. If you wanted to carve out a circle, I'll show you on my extra here. So let's say I had a teeny tiny circle like this. Put the tool in. This is a little tool. Same exact process, but just at a smaller scale. So I put the tool up against the circle, turn the block, and my right hand is just like chilling. It's just kind of pushing till I get all the way around. And then you can see that I could either carve that away or leave it depending on the design, but there's a teeny tiny circle. Yes, you're welcome. All right, will you cover how to clean things up at the end? Just wondering how best to take care of the brayer and inking plate. Yes, so if you have excess ink on your brayer, I tend to just roll this out onto a piece of paper, like scrap paper. This, since it's water-based, it might dry pretty quick. As you can see, it's pretty dry already. But this washes up with soap and water, which is fantastic. So you don't have to do anything special. I would just go to my sink and rinse everything off. I try to get as much excess ink off as I can, like I just did, but it does tend to dry quickly. So keep that in mind. And you can also wash your blocks with soap and water, and they will last a really long time. I have, like this rubber specifically, I've made blocks with this for the last 10 years, and they're still great. Just don't, I would not stack them and store them like that. I would keep them at one single layer if you have a bunch of them, and also just keep them out of the direct sun, which they should be, yeah, in a drawer or something like that. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this house real quick here, and I'm ready to X-Acto these edges off. If you carve out the background sky, do you ever use the smaller blade and leave the little bits stuck up? I kind of like the texture. You could definitely do that, yeah. I think adding texture is one of the most fun parts of this process. So yeah, give it a shot. Okay, so I have my X-Acto tool here. Slicing off the excess, leaving a little border to grab for printing. Can also use scissors. Is the ink waterproof? That's a great question. I think the water-based ink is not. Let's see what it says on here. I don't think it is, but I could be wrong about that. I would just try to keep it obviously in a dry place after you print and keep your prints dry. What's the difference between using Speedball printing ink and using heavy body acrylic paint? Great question. These Speedball ink and all block printing inks are made specifically for block printing. I think that if you try to use a thick acrylic, you might have some success, but I just think the consistency might not be quite right for the process. But then again, I don't think I've ever tried, so it's worth a shot if that's all you had, you could give it a shot. But I think that these are specifically made for block printing, and they're tacky, and they're like they're just meant for printing, if that makes sense. So yeah, good question. I have never tried that, but maybe I should. Archival ink pads are waterproof and work great too, Diane says. Yes, very, very true. I usually use them for the test printing portion for sure, because it gives you a good idea of what is left to carve or not carve. Um, so I have my image done here. I'm going to add one little last design. I was kind of inspired by this little star that I made earlier. I'm going to do a little star like right on the roof there. I'm going to go back to the number 1. We have a question. Is it harder to carve round objects? I mean, I think it can be tricky. I showed you this going around this moon here. I think curves can definitely be tricky, but they're not, I don't think they're any harder necessarily than carving a straight line, just because you can use your left hand or your non-dominant hand to kind of turn the block as you go. So yeah, I would encourage trying all different line shapes and sizes and straight, curvy, whatever you like. Okay, that's pretty cute. All right, we'll get our moon ready too, so we can do a little vignette with all these. Carmen says, I just thought of creating swatching stamps for watercolor using waterproof ink pads. Yes. Oh, that's such a good idea. That. I'm gonna go with scissors for this one. Keep it simple. So again, this edge part does not show up in your stamp. So if it's imperfect, it's okay. Why do I like that sound? Snapping sound. All right, there's our moon. Cecilia asked, do I have a YouTube channel? I technically do have a YouTube channel. It's where I post videos for Patreon, but I have them like unlisted on there, so they're not visible. But if you were to ever join Patreon, all those videos would be, it's like 6 years worth of video, so it's quite a few, and probably some embarrassing like early Rare Press ones. So keep that in mind. And I think I have a couple of public videos on there as well. So if you looked up Rare Press on YouTube, it should pop up. All right, let's finish these 2 and then we'll do our little vignette on the card. Looks like we've got about half an hour left, so plenty of time. And again, if you want to come back and watch this later, I feel like this is a project that shouldn't be rushed. So if you're feeling rushed, take your time. I think you can also use this kind of stamp if you're doing clay. Stamping into clay is something I've been wanting to try. I think that could be a really cool mixed media sort of thing. Okay, so for this tree, I might leave it untextured, maybe, just so it's a little different from the slightly bigger tree. So if you're feeling frustrated with the constant switching of the gouges, you can get a couple of these and then just have them ready to go so you can switch back and forth more quickly. Very handy. Okay, back to our little tree. Any tips for text? Oh, good question. I think I will have time to do a quick little text one at the end. Text is can be challenging just because it has to be readable, right? And if you carve away anything important, it might not be readable anymore. So I recommend if you're just starting out and you want to try text, just like doing block letters, maybe avoiding cursive at first. You definitely could try. It just, again, it's important that it's readable at the end. So you want to make sure that you're not getting too overcomplicated. But yeah, I can show you a quick little text piece at the end. Text is great because it's like oftentimes you can make a more functional stamp with text, like the little please do not bend that I made. Very functional for packages. I've always wanted to make an address stamp for myself, but I'm also intimidated by that because, again, readable, very small, and numbers, just all the things. So I haven't quite tackled that yet, but maybe in the future. Stan asks, can you use a provisional press to print your images? I don't know what that is. Maybe you can fill me in. I do have a little tabletop press from Speedball that I really love, and it was kind of a game changer. I also have a Woodzilla press. I don't know if you guys have heard of those. You should look them up after this class. They're a really small tabletop press, different sizes you can get, but they originally were made by this guy, I think in the Netherlands, and then I think he teamed up with Speedball. They're just fantastic, and they're great for smaller things. The size that I have is for like 5x7s, but just a really nice, easily storable kind of piece of equipment that it's worth investing in if you end up getting really into block printing. All right, we're gonna move on to the other house here. Carmen says you should create a book or PDF of stamp ideas. Oh, that sounds like a great idea. I feel like I do have a lot of examples from over the years, you know. That's a fantastic idea. I feel like whenever I teach workshops, none of the designs that people make overlap. Like I've taught, I don't even know how many over the last 6, 7 years maybe, and everyone is so creative with their designs. It's incredible how no two images are alike. So I love that about this process. Can you show some more examples of stamps you've made? I'd love to get some ideas for future projects. Yes, I can dig some out in a minute. I have a few more of these like really mini ones. They're kind of meant to be like little emoji stamps. A project I did for Speedball, and they turned out adorable. But also, if you after class, if you want to look up more inspiration, my Instagram at Rare Press, especially if you scroll back, there's tons of like tutorial videos and examples and other fun things that I used to post a lot more videos than I do now. So it's worth a scroll back if you're feeling inspired. This piece is stuck. Okay, these little roof looks a little wonky, but it's okay. It's okay. Okay, let me get the big tool again. Cecilia says, your stamps are in such a cute style. Thank you. Appreciate that. I feel like I've had a nice long time to kind of like narrow in on my style, you know? It's definitely evolved over the years, but I feel like overall it has stayed pretty similar to when I first started. All right, I'm gonna trim. Okay, we have all 5 done. I'm gonna do a little bit of text since someone asked. Happy to show you. So I'm picturing a little vignette with trees and houses and the moon. You think of what text would make the most sense here. I guess we could do joy again, like in the original. Let's do that. Make a nice simple block letter joy. So again, we're writing on the paper because of the reversing. I did it nice and dark. Okay, I'm gonna line it up with the edge of my rubber so that I preserve the extra rubber. And use the handle end of the tool to swipe. Stan says you can Google provisional press to see the press. It's pretty cool. I will definitely do that. I'm very curious. Okay, so we have our J-O-Y. I'm just going to go ahead and trim it down a bit. There we go. So I'm going to carve around the letters. Let's see, where's my example here? So, for example, this one, I'm going to do it in that style where I'm carving around the letters versus this one. You can see I had this like oval shape and I carved the letters out of the black or out of the inked area. So this one I'm just going to do the very simple way. So let's get back to our number one gouge. Okay. Kelly's asking the best way to do multiple colors in one project. I actually have a video posted about how to do that on Speedball, and I will trying to remember where it's posted. I think on their website. But basically, you can. Sorry, I'm like carving and talking at the same time is not my strong suit. Need to work on that. You can basically do like you can print. So in the past, what I've done is I have one full block, and I've done like for example, red as the full rectangle. So a red print that's the full 4x6. And then with that same rubber block, I will start carving out a design. So you have this really nice background color and then your second color over the top, if that makes sense. But there are multiple ways to do multicolor prints, and they're just so fun. Even if you wanted to do like, let's say you wanted to make this house half black, half red, you could get, a little bit of the roller. You could either set up your inking station with black and red and make like an ombre sort of roll and then roll it on, or have two rollers with two different colors, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can see I'm just carving around the outline of the letters. Again, it's never going to be like perfect. It just has to be legible and cute, right? We can do that. Carving out the inside of the O. Debbie says, I love my print. Thanks so much. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. I love when people leave a class feeling like they accomplished something. Very nice. I think I saw a comment about the asking for links. Well, the Patreon is just patreon.com/rarepress. The YouTube, since I don't really like publicize it as a public YouTube, I think it's probably youtube.com/ I'm not 100% sure. That's embarrassing that I don't even know that, but yeah. And my Instagram is just @rarepress. And you can also, if you have questions later, please just send me a message on Instagram. I love hearing from you and answering questions. So if you're like in a week, you're like, oh, I had a question about whatever, please just message me. I would love to chat. So same thing here. I'm just kind of like using the big tool to carve away the bigger areas. And then because there's so many little like spots in here, I'm gonna have to go back in with a smaller tool to clean it up, but it's okay. There's a comment about just watching today and not actually doing the project today, which I actually really love. Like that people come and just kind of check it out first and then go back and do a project. So yeah, send me a picture if you end up doing it. I would love to see what you make. I think it's so cool that you guys were able to get kits in the mail too. I feel like getting a kit in the mail is like such a luxury. It's just so sweet. It's like you don't have to go buy anything. Everything's just ready for you. You can do it anytime you want. Love it. All right. Cecilia said the kit is awesome. And Kelly too. Yay. I'm so glad. Thanks to Plaza Art and Speedball for setting all that up. It's fantastic. My email address, I will tell you right now, it is rarepressmpls, like Minneapolis, @gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram, and then there's a button for my email on there as well. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Lauren, for putting that in there. Yes, that's my email. Feel free to reach out either Instagram or email, whatever you like. I'll be around.
And just since we're getting closer to the end time, just no rush, but it looks like some people might be really excited to share. So at the end, like the last 5 minutes, stick around and we'll do like a little show and tell at the end with our gallery view. So you can see
Awesome.
what
Can't
everybody
wait to
made. Yeah.
see. Yes, that's my favorite part. Even if it's unfinished, and you feel comfortable, obviously sharing them, we would love, love, love to see. Okay, this is getting there. There's a lot of little curves in this one. And it looks a little messy, but I think it's going to be cute. And I will try to remember to show you guys the other little emoji stamps at the end too, because I have them fairly handy. All my other stuff is kind of like in drawers and you'd hear a lot of like loud sounds, but that's okay. Okay, I think this little joy is almost ready to print. Got about 15-20 minutes left, so plenty of time to make this little vignette. Okay. I want to make sure that all the little bits that might impede the readability are gone, which I can, of course, carve away after the fact, after the printing process. But I kind of want to make the first impression at least readable. Looks pretty good. Okay. Also, I just want to say thanks to you guys for asking questions. I feel like there's some classes I've taught where it's like very quiet and people are just, which is fine too. People can do their thing, but I really love questions and I hope that I've answered them adequately. Okay, I'm adding a little detail on the moon. All right, we're gonna move these scraps. Like I said, they're gonna be in your life. You might find some in a year or two. Here's our plate. Carmen says, this has been a really great workshop. Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's like kind of a random time on a Thursday. I'm glad that people are around. So we had a little bit of ink from before that's still a little wet. I'm gonna add a touch more. I have like a really fancy like glass printing palette and I still end up using this like camping plate that I've had since I was a kid. I don't know why, it works. Okay, hear that? That's what we want. A little bit of shimmer there. Okay, so move that out of the way. I'm gonna get my the greeting card sort of paper that I showed you earlier. We're gonna print right on there. So I'm gonna get everything inked up here. We have our original tree. I'm gonna just go right over the top of that one. And because these are, the ink dries a little quickly, I'm gonna print them one at a time instead of inking all of them together. So let's do a tree back here. Even pressure, make sure you're covering all portions of the block. Cute. We'll do a little house next. Sorry, let me show you. Here we go. So these can be used for obviously holiday cards, but you could use them for any project really. I just love a little stamp. I just love the size and flexibility. That's adorable. Okay. Let's do another tree. Do one up here, maybe. Trees. We'll do one more of those over on the side. So I feel like if you had a little set like this, you could make very customized stamp or greeting cards for everybody, depending on like the pattern that you make, you know. I love that. Let's do the moon as well. Need a little bit more ink, sorry. What's the best paper to stamp on? Carmen asks. Great question. The one that, if you have the kit, the Arnim one is the one that I use for all my prints that I sell. I think it's 1416 is the one I use. I'm not sure if that's the exact same one you guys have in your kit, but it's a nice cotton paper and I've used it for years and I just really love it. And I buy it through um, Speedball. Look at that moon. Okay, we'll do the other house and then we'll do the little text, the joy. Okay, it's either Arnhem 1416 or 1618. I always forget the numbers. Cute, cute. All right, let's see how this joy looks. 1618, Carmen says. Thank you. Perfect. That's in the kit. Awesome. Yeah, that's the one I really, really love. Okay, I just inked this up and you can see that there's a little bit of the Y that I should have carved away, but we're going to test print it and see what it looks like. Cecilia asked, would warm pressed paper be ideal considering it doesn't have texture? Yeah, I think that'd work great. You're right about texture sometimes being an issue. I mean, it still prints fine. It's just you see the texture. But yeah, I would definitely think that that would work great. Okay, I'm not super happy with this. You can see that it's a little unreadable on the Y. So I would go ahead and clean off my block. I usually, if I don't want to go like wash it right then and there, I'll just kind of wipe it on scratch paper and then go in and fix it up a little, no problem. So I know exactly where I need to fix. I'm gonna go in and cut off that little extra piece on the Y. That's why test printing is so useful. And then there's a couple other little spots that the ink revealed that I'm going to also carve away. Okay, it's better. Let's ink it up.
Lizzie, is the ink you're using considered archival?
Oh, that's such a good question. This one, I think it is, but don't quote me on that. I will have to figure that out. It's a great question. I will ask Speedball about that. I think it is though. That's better. Okay, I'm just gonna like, I know this is the actual card material. I'm just gonna go ahead and like play around a little bit. So the composition can be really flexible with these, which I find very, very fun. So we're at about 10 or so minutes left. I was going to show you a couple of the emoji stamps, so let me grab them. I'll be right there. All right. Yeah. Some of them look like the thing they're supposed to look like, and some not as much, but I think they turned out really cute. So we have a little hello. We have a little spool of thread, which that one, I don't know if it really comes across, but it's still cute. Little envelope. So when I send out mail every month on Patreon, I tend to like pick a stamp and put it on the envelope and have a little extra flair on my envelopes. Watermelon. This is like a little tiny bird head with a beak. Heart, bow, raindrops. Did a smiley face, but I also did like a, you know, anxiety face. I'll test out a couple of these to show you what they look like. And then in a few minutes, we can share what we've been working on. Anybody who wants to can, of course. Okay, here's a little anxious face. Cute. That one I have not put on the Patreon envelopes because I think it gives off a vibe, but try to do the cuter ones. There's a little bird. So yeah, I can tell my ink is a little dry, so I'm going to add a touch more here. Any last questions that you think of right now, I'm happy to answer. And if you think of them later, again, email me, message me on Instagram, and I will get back to you. This plate is it's a metal plate like for camping, I think, not melamine. But that would also work. Any surface that's just non-porous would be great for the rolling of the ink. And I'll do the little text one so you can see there's a bit of a difference between the text that I just carved and this one. So this one I carved letters out of a dark background with a shape around them, you know what I mean? And this one I carved the letters out with no background. So I think both of them have their challenges. Like this one I tend to think is easier where I'm just carving letters out. But at the same time, if you slip up, it becomes a problem. So yeah, I think both of them have their challenges, but they both are like super fun to play around with. This one's cute because it's like a little cloud and you can customize the shape. All right, do a little flower here. Yeah, so there's a bunch. I'm gonna do the spool of thread just to see. I mean, kind of looks like spool thread. I don't know. Close enough. All right, I think we've come to the sharing portion. So yeah, I'll let Lauren set that up.
Yeah. Okay, guys. So just to get ready for it, if you want to see everyone's screen, you can change your view in Zoom to gallery view and go ahead and turn your camera on and show the camera what you need. I'm gonna look too. Okay, I see some coming up. Jenny, a cat, adorable. Got some houses from Nerissa. Kelly. Oh, trying to get it from blurring. Is it a duck? I couldn't tell. Oh, there's a pretty bird from Regina. Oh, poinsettias, that's so festive from Kim. Heidi's got a cute bird. More cats. I love the cats. Cats are my favorite. Heather. Randall, awesome. That's a nice design. I love that. Debbie, so pretty. We got Faye. Yeah. Is that a turnip? Is it a plant? Oh, so cool. Everyone's looks really awesome. Beautiful Patricia, Rick. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah, I love all these. They're so great. You guys
All
have
right.
been so engaged
Yeah.
and wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us
Super
today.
cool.
Yeah.
It's all yours, Jan. So if there's any other questions, we got a couple more minutes left for Lizzie. I love it. That was a lot of shares. I think that's the most we've had in a workshop that everyone
Oh,
shared. That's awesome.
I
Here,
love
I
that.
love your bird. Okay, let's see. I think maybe we might got. So Faye is asking how you use multiple colors. So if you want to go over a little bit about using multiple colors in your designs, Lizzie.
Yeah, for sure. So you could either do like individual stamps, have their own individual rollers that are associated with them. So let's say you had like a couple of, depending on your ink colors, like a couple of red flowers and then a couple, like a black house or whatever. If you wanted to do like an ombre design I mentioned earlier, you could set up your inking plate so that you have two colors with the roller, and then you can directly like ink onto the block and have a two color piece, if that makes sense. So it depends on if you want to be like having inks mixed together on your printing surface, or if you want to do separate, like here's one roller with one color for this part and then kind of fill it in. So you could do like all the houses could be green, all the trees could be green, all the houses could be red kind of thing. You just have multiple rollers and multiple like little sections where you're inking, if that makes sense.
Awesome. And then just a reminder, it's just soap and water you can use to clean your inky brayer and uh, rubber. Yeah. And you kind of just wipe off the excess before you wash.
Yeah, exactly. Wipe off the excess. Soap
Yeah.
and water is super great, and then you can just store your blocks. Usually, I store them in a drawer, like on separate layers, either with cardboard in between, or even like a tea towel in between, whatever you have, just so they're out of the sun and they're not like touching each other. It's the best way to do it.
Awesome. So great. Looks like everyone had a really good time. I hope everyone does have a really great holiday season. Um, we do have one more event at the end of the year, but we're getting close to it. Thank you, Lizzie, so much. This is really great. I hope everyone got really inspired to make some holiday greeting cards for everyone, and hope to see you guys on the next one. Thanks all for coming.
Thank you so
Have a
much,
great
you
rest of your
guys.
day.